Hi, welcome back to the Personality Code Masterclass series, bringing you 20 innovative ways to read your personality, your biology, so you can identify, leverage your uniqueness. I'm your host, Andrew Colombini, and today we have a very special guest, John Daniel Giamario. John, how you doing?
Actually, Daniel. John is not a name ever used, so it's Daniel
Okay,
Giamario. Yeah.
Daniel, thanks for the correction.
Mhm.
Daniel, how are you doing?
All right.
And you're tuning in from literally the other side of the world right now. It's great.
Actually, 12 at this time of year, it's 12 hours exact difference. So I think it's 7 p.m. for you on the East Coast, and it's 7 a.m. here the following day.
Yeah, calling from the future. So I really appreciate that you're taking this time to be on the show here. And for those of you who don't know who Daniel is, let's go ahead and give you an introduction. He's the founder and president of Turning of the Ages Mystery School and creator of the shamanic astrology paradigm, also known as the Giamario approach. He joins together an academic background in comparative philosophy and religion with teaching meditation in two worldwide organizations and extensive world travel. He learned astrology in the late 60s and was part of Dane
Rajar, Dane Rajar.
Rudhyar's humanistic and transpersonal astrology movements in the 1970s. After a vision quest experience on Mount Shasta in 1981, his astrological vision and spiritual path became more earth centered and shamanically orientated astrology was born. For many years, his specialty has been connecting astrology to the night sky and at secluded locations and at sacred sites in as above, so below directed experience. He has been a full-time astrological consultant since 1984. Currently has a large mentoring practice and an apprenticeships program. The shamanic astrology paradigm has evolved as a rich blend of psychological, mythological, spiritual, and shamanistic elements, specifically designed to assist in the unfoldment of the individual's life purpose and navigating this pivotal point in the turning of the ages. He's written two books: Shamanic Astrology Handbook and The Origins of the Shamanic Astrology Paradigm, as well as a Shamanic Astrology Divination Card Deck. That's awesome. Lives with his wife Lynn in Southeast Asia, and Dan's passions are the growing of the turning of the ages, mystery schools, body of knowledge, further evolution of the Giamario approach, and the continued research to obtain answers to his lifelong question: who are we? What has happened? Super excited to have you on here. Thanks,
Well,
Daniel.
a pleasure having a chance to talk with you on this very important subject.
Yes, what a better person to have on here than, to talk about, what's like the authentic human possibilities. Who are we? Why are we here? How do we find our groove in life? I would love for you to share more about that, your insights, your wisdoms, what you found.
Well, I'm a guy that had the good fortune of going to the university in the late 60s, one of the time periods where actually, we kicked the military and corporations and fraternities and sororities off the campus and had a truly expanded education. And it was during that time period where I got involved with Eastern philosophy, but then finally astrology. And it was through the work of Dane Rajar. And then all through the 70s, I was I like to think that we were at the front edge, leading edge of kind of a renaissance of astrology at that point that was overthrowing the cause and effect deterministic view, and where the entire focus was on using the astrological approach to become aware of, who we really are and what our life purpose is. I mean, one of the things that Rajar used to say, and I just love this quote, is that if we do not fulfill our dharma, our intended purpose, our responsibility, a hole is left in the universe where that person is intended to be. But then at the same time, we certainly recognize free will. So, I mean, Jung and Steiner, Aurobindo, Rajar. These are some of the individuals that really were at the foundation of this approach and the way astrology was in the leading edge in the 70s. It's kind of regressed a bit. And so I'll just give you one example. In our approach to looking at the full human being, the full spectrum of what a human being can be, that we noticed, and I noticed this big time early on, that sun signs don't work very well. That putting everything into a sun sign is like boxing people in what actually turns out to be the shadow of what is understood about that quote sign.
Hmm.
So we don't really emphasize the sun sign. There are certain exceptions to that. But there's a way of using the astrological chart to get clues of what the intent of the life is. So like some forms of astrology, it's like, well, this is how you are. And you can either agree with that or not. But our sense of it is that you do come into the life with a certain combination of essential characteristics that predate what family you're born into or what culture you're born into or what time period in history you're born in. But these essential qualities are just a stepping off point to what the intent in the current life is. And in our school and how I feel about it now is that at this time period, which we consider a great turning of the ages, it's not just some ordinary time, but it's a time period where there's like a convergence of 6 different timelines
Hmm.
that are creating new timelines, and it's a different time frame. And so at this time period in history, really the most important thing, because we really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, no astrologer can really know. I mean, it's up to great mystery. However, that there are clues from different systems, including some of the other people that you talk to, in your summit. There are systems and ways of getting clues about what your purpose is. And I think to know what your purpose is and what place on the wheel of life you came in to be on is incredibly important. It's probably the most important thing for a human being today, far more important than even more mundane issues, actually. So the ability to get those clues and then to choose to be in alignment with current life purpose.
Hmm.
And often, just as kind of a starting point of the discussion, as I mentioned, this is more about intent. It includes a lot of free will, and it's not deterministic. I always loved what Jung said when he was asked what free will was. He said, oh yes, free will. Free will means to gladly do what you must do, which is that you can agree to go along with your intent, but human beings are a very interesting species because they can choose not to.
Hmm.
Um,
So interesting.
some people, it's kind. There's a statement in the Christian Bible: many are called and few are chosen. But we've rewritten that in the framework of our school, was to say many are called, but only some agree. Only some will choose to fulfill what their potential or original intent is. Right?
Hmm. That's really interesting because what comes to mind right now is how do I know if I'm being called? Is there signs? Like, how would I be able, like, to answer the call?
Well, there's a number of factors. I mean, and there are plenty of individuals that, if they were maybe, brought up a certain way within a certain cultural framework, a certain consensus reality, they might not even just on an educational level know other places on the wheel of life. They could be, it's kind of like in the early 70s, much of our astrology at that time was a reaction against patriarchal astrology. Most all of
Hmm.
astrology was a remnant, a relic of Hellenistic and post-Hellenistic patriarchal times. And
Hmm.
so most of us at that time at the leading edge were bringing the feminine quite strongly in. so elements of the sacred feminine, but also different expressions of masculine. Because as far as I'm concerned, men, and while they may, in certain aspects of patriarchy, have had more power, I think they were more damaged by patriarchy than even women. by a certain a paucity of roles that were authentic for men to be. So the first answer to your question is that it's some degree of education.
Mhm.
Then there's a timing issue. Like, for example, I have a lot of my mentees that are coaches. You know, maybe they don't even use astrology, but they might know something about astrology to know that you don't tell somebody to take action if they're in a Neptune cycle. If a person's in a Saturn cycle, it's really important to look at the truth of the situation. What's working and what isn't working. There are other kinds of cycles that are about riding a wave. Like, oh, that's the time period to take my band on the road, or that's the time period to enter the surfing competition or something like that. I mean, the timing is a lot. However, it's also the case, and I think this would apply to whether you're a shamanic counselor, if you are an astrological counselor, a spiritual teacher or counselor, is that your job really is not to tell a person what to do, but rather to be, and this is the best that can happen really, is to be second opinion to that person's intuition. As if to say, yes, you had a feeling about that, now didn't you? Well, here's a really good timing in order to check it out. And there's a proposition we have in our school, which is the universe is supportive of a human being who consciously aligns with the cycle they're in, or they're in harmony with the intent of their soul in the current life. This is not always the path of least resistance. Sometimes the path of least resistance is, well, I'm just going to rest on my laurels rather than to truly investigate some new place on the wheel of life that they might not have known that that's what their purpose was.
Hmm. It's very fascinating. And I love that. I mean, there's times to take action, there's times to do things, there's times not to. It's important to know this. So if someone's watching right now,
Yeah,
because we did have someone come on and we talked about um there's like a forecast, right? You know what time frame you're in, and we had a numerologist come on, even say like there's different
good.
years that you're in as well. um but how would someone get more precise to really understand? And we even had someone who talked about, the Saturn return is a major thing to look out for, and then the
Right,
Neptune, I
right.
believe, and Chiron. So what further advice would you say for someone to get, more clear and
in
be able to
in in,
navigate?
in 5 minutes. No, I mean
I know it's hard.
each of those. I mean, I actually have a 10-week course on how to navigate with Saturn. Um, if a person happens to be in a Neptune cycle, then we tell the stories of the whether it's a for a young person or whether it's somebody in their 40s or even someone in their 80s. It's like a walkabout, where it's a time period where you give yourself permission to not know. So rather than being trying to feel like, oh, I need to know who I am, I need to know what I'm here to do, it's a time period to rest on that and just say, no, let's stretch out even more. It's okay to not know. Each of the outer planets represents a particular initiatory process. But as I mentioned before, this is not something that's based on sun signs. So
Mm.
essentially what we do, if I can give you like a quick summary of
Hmm.
it, is that we look at the moon position as a person's lineage, the idea of what they came in with, whether it's past lives, whether it's a family history, DNA, bloodline. It's going to be a whole sort of combination of different things. But a person comes in with a particular essence, a place on the wheel of life that they were preparing, thinking that's what they're going to be doing. But then for men, the Mars position, not the sun sign, although they could be the same, but Mars would be the version of masculinity that the guy comes in to investigate, one of 12. And the Venus position for women would be what version of the sacred feminine did she come in to investigate. So actually in our approach, we use certain number sacred geometry. So we basically, oh yeah, the well, it can be XX human, XY human. Then there's 24 genders that can come from that. So you have like 12 different expressions of the feminine, 12 different expressions of the masculine. But then there's a way of looking at the moon position in combination with the ascendant, what's coming up over the eastern horizon, which is like the helm of your ship. The soul is moving in that direction, that comes up with 144 storylines. So
Mm,
there'll be a storyline for a person's lineage, and then there'll be a storyline for current life purpose that is based upon the rising sign and actually the north node of the house the north node is in. And then you have 12 jobs and 12 tribes, or you have 12 majors and 12 mystery schools of life, which give
mm,
very interesting
the
mythic and
12.
archetypal and even practical expressions of what a person's life purpose is. But then what role would you play? It would be the Venus or Mars position, you know.
Hmm.
So if I'm talking to someone and I'm just, they're interested at all, I don't say, what's your sign? I might say, when were you born? And then I will absolutely know their age and know what initiatory process they're in. But I will
Mm,
also say, do you know what your Venus or Mars is? Or do I know what your moon is? I mean, I can have a group of people that don't know anything. We don't even have their charts, but I might just look in my ephemeris and say, well, here we have you're a Mars in Scorpio. Well, your intent is this. Or a woman who maybe has Venus in Aquarius, your intention is that. And it's a way of revealing different possibilities on the wheel of life, the full
very
spectrum
interesting.
of possibilities.
Have you ever noticed that people who have certain signs in their Mars or positions, do you notice any patterns? They tend to look similarly. Like we had a face reader on here, and there's another person who reads biotypes. There's a way of looking at people's face structure and their hand shape. And do you notice any like physical representations of people with certain planet associations?
Not as much as a lot of other people using astrology think. I mean, a lot the mainstream astrology often would see the rising sign as having something to do with how you look.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, since we have a global template, it has a great deal also to do with, what part of the world a person is in, so I mean, obviously it may be a Leo rising. If they happen to be in Scandinavia, it's going to look a particular way, but it's not going to look like that if you're in Australia, or an Aboriginal in Australia, so but in answer to your question, energetically, yes. So, I mean, if you can walk into a room and, oh man, there's the Virgo energy, or there's the Scorpio energy. I'm actually, Jimi Hendrix at one point in one of his one of his concerts, he said, I want all the Scorpio energy over there. I want all the Gemini energy over there. So I tune in at various points to the different energetics. He was using sun signs on that, but it becomes even more powerful when you look at the Venus or Mars position, to really feel those energies. I know it applies to communication. It applies to how a person is, whether they're an introvert or an extrovert, or what their natural expression is.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at someone's chart, would you be able to see, okay, well, that's in this house, Mercury's there, this thing's there, that thing's there. Okay, this person probably is going to have an analyzing type personality, or this person's probably going to have like a promoting, influencing type personality. This person's
Right.
probably, have you heard of the DISC study test before?
Have I what?
DISC, the personality test.
I don't know that one, but what I will
Okay.
share with you is that we use in our approach something that's an extrapolation of the Jungian system
Mm-hmm.
of thinking function, feeling function, intuitive function, and sensation function, and you can apply that strongly to the different signs and the elements on the chart. So
Okay.
that is something, but unlike certain systems, this approach to the chart is completely developmental. So there'll be different phases of life. You can come in a particular way, but you can actually come into the life a particular way. But then you have certain stages of life where you can develop other capacities,
Hmm.
and you can tell that. And like an individual could have a lineage that is primarily a thinking function type, like an
Hmm.
Aquarius moon or a Gemini moon or something like that. But then they might have Scorpio rising, which would
Hmm.
mean, or they could have Capricorn rising. So the journey is more involution, coming
Hmm.
into Earth, coming into the feeling function,
Hmm.
while other individuals, it's the other way around, so there's a reciprocity to the whole process. There's some people are more on the evolutionary path, and I don't mean evolution in that other sense, but like the difference between evolution and involution. One is fire and air, and the other is earth and water.
Right.
And those things operate pretty easily seen on the
Hmm.
chart.
That's actually interesting. I don't know if you've heard of Unani Tib or the four temperaments. And there's sanguine, melancholic,
Yeah,
phlegmatic, and choleric. So these are different biotypes. And there's a theory of Unani medicine where 70% of your biology is one of those. You can't change it. People are always going to either be impulsive or analytical or emotional,
right,
but
right.
30% is personality, right? So that's fluid and we change and we move. Is there anything in the chart where you're like, okay, these aspects, that's the person, like that's generally who they're going to be. They're like almost stagnant, it's almost fixed, if you will.
Well, I noticed that actually, if a person's open to it, that they can shift into the intent. So there will be individuals, let's say, who come in. Um, like a Capricorn moon, for example. They've had lifetimes of being the elder, the expert, the know-it-all. Now, that individual generally is going to have to go through life experiences. I mean, depending on the chart. Not some people have the Capricorn moon and they're just here to keep doing the same thing, but in most cases they're shifting to something else. So therefore, every horoscope will show where there's a surrender point. Where the individual will have to get over that identification with who they thought they were, so they can move into the something different if the chart shows it's something different. If I could say it this way, um, that if you look at the broad spectrum of horoscopes, some, if you get what the lineage is, the current life is very similar to that. While the other end of the spectrum, incredible contrast.
Mm-hmm.
You could have an individual, we could say, whose lineage is entirely about relationship, knowing themselves through others. But the current life is learn how to be a free electron, learn how to know yourself not through the eyes of other people or with others. And then it can be just the reverse of that. So there's no like one right way or wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the whole point of the kind of astrology that developed from Rajar, which was to get beyond what the culture might say, but to see the full spectrum of possibilities, which then allows us to have a world that honors all the places on the wheel of life. And if you
Beautiful.
look back at the history of humanity, different cultures saw it different ways at different times. But it's because we're at a time period of great change, the great turning of the ages, that only happens like this. I mean, six the sixth sun emerging, the end of Kali Yuga, the end and the beginning of a 26,000-year cycle, the sixth mass extinction, the variety of other different templates to understand what is happening at this time, including in a completely non-astrological approach, the fourth turning, which happens about the 80 or 90-year point of any country. And so the United States, for example, now is in a fourth turning, the same time period as World War II, Civil War. I mean, so these pockets of time
Mm-hmm.
come up over on a regular
The
basis.
cycles. Yeah,
So,
it's really interesting. And I know, like, of course, this is decades and decades and decades. We just scratched the surface. So I appreciate you doing your absolute best to give us a condensed version. And those of you listening right now, like obviously, as you could tell, it's very complex. And the invitation for you guys watching is to reach out to Daniel. Do you offer one-on-one
I
reads
do.
and
I
working?
do. And we have a whole team of people also in the school that, that practice the same approach. Uh, the school has actually been happening since the 80s. And, so we have a certification program, and we have uh, certified mentors, teachers. We have, in fact, the free gift that you wanted me to, I think, to talk
Mm-hmm.
about um, is actually a free. It's the thing that anyone who takes our courses, and it's actually free to our members, but I'm going to make it free to anyone who's listening to this, which is our basic course. So
Nice.
it's the thing which goes through all the core concepts that I have been describing right now. And so that I forget how long it is. I mean, our courses generally are quite extensive. I mean, we have guided groups, and they take a long time to go through the full extended courses, but this is the basic course that gives you a thumbnail sketch of what I've been attempting to share in just a few moments with you. Mhm.
And I think the audience is aware that, this is a very complex subject. And you guys heard them down below. You're going to see that button. Click that so you can get access to the course. And I highly encourage everyone listening to, if you haven't already run your chart, and even if you have, reach out to Daniel, reach out to his team, dive deeper into this, learn more about, what section, age range you are in your life, what are the transits, what's going on, just so you could be, more prepared, just more in connection, have more clarity, have more compassion when things are happening in your life. And that way there you can really live on purpose and unified and in harmony. So, Daniel, is there anything else before we conclude? Yes.
What's your do you know your chart?
I do. Do you know my sun sign? Do you know what
No,
it
do
is?
you know your moon or Mars?
Um, yes. My moon is Taurus.
Uh-huh.
A Taurus moon, Virgo, Sun, Leo rising,
Mm-hmm.
and Mars. I think it's in Aries. No, where is it? Hold on a second. Let's see, Mars. Wait, say that again.
Mars position.
It looks like Libra. Is that right?
Well, I mean, I could look it up in my book, but if what's your, I
It's
mean, so
the third house, I think it is. Yeah, Libra. I have Mars. I have
mhm.
Libras and Jupiter and Mars in the third house.
Right. So the idea here would be with this system is that if you have Mars and Libra,
Yes, I do. That's right.
the intention in the life would be a whole new leading edge of what we call conscious equal partnership, which is a collaborative approach, whether it's with a mate, lover, partner, husband, wife, or with not hierarchical relationships, not like I'm with you because you're my teacher, but rather it's like a kind of a horizontal kind of thing to know more about yourself through the other or through others. And ultimately Mars and Libra wants to be valued as a partner or as a sensitivity to be concerned about another person. So it's the opposite of an individual who would be just centered on self.
Hmm.
Now, Taurus moon combined with Mars in Libra, those are the two places on the wheel of life that are most about personal relationship. The two different kinds of personal relationship. Intimacy is art, and then the more agreement oriented versions of partnering. So that's just what I can tell from those two archetypes. Now, I know it's going beyond what your time is here for our conversation,
I'm okay
but I
with it.
would also then, just as a basic thing, if I could try this out.
Please,
So,
yeah.
what, if you don't mind, some people don't necessarily want to. How old are you?
I'm turning 30 next month on the 7th,
You're
September
turning
7th.
30.
Yeah.
So you're just in your first Saturn return,
Yeah.
or maybe possibly just completing it.
Yeah.
You know,
The pinnacle was a couple months ago.
yeah, yeah. So this often Saturn returns in mainstream approach, people think have a bad reputation, but it's only something difficult if a person's not on track. If a person is committed to their life path relative to, your life phase. I mean, it would be different at the second Saturn return or the third Saturn return or later in life, but this is the point of the full on complete commitment to your life path and a willingness to put everything into it. And for people who haven't been on their path, that's when the first Saturn return can be difficult. It's like, geez, that person I'm with, they don't get who I am, so we have to go through the divorce. Or in some other cases, it might be like, this is when I'm finally ready to know who I want to be with. So it
Mm,
would show up like that. Or obviously with career stuff too. Like well, I think I've done enough in that company. Now I really want to be an entrepreneur and build my own thing. I'm going to kind of go with my own vision, and that's the quick thing I could say about Leo rising:
mm.
the freedom to make it up any way you want. Our definition of the Leo Mystery School is having the courage to be creator.
Yeah, big
and but
time.
but for the joy of it, not for the ego of it. So
Sure.
it's a different kind of yeah, for the play and the fun and the joy of it.
So on point. Definitely on point. Yeah, things have really been it was rough, but luckily I've always followed my intuition ever since I was really young. It was something that was undeniable, and it's led me to a lot of things, taken many different weird risks. I'm an only child that went against the grain many times, but it was something that I just needed to do. And because of all of that, I don't know why, but I mean I do know why. It's just that's the life path, it's the journey. And it's something that I believe I'm here to share with people as well. That's why I'm doing
Well,
this show.
Andrew, it's quite inspiring to me to I'm going to next month, I'm going to be 75. All right. And now this is of course a generational kind of thing, but in the 60s we would say don't trust anyone over 30, right?
Okay.
And all these days in my generation, it's like don't trust anyone under 30, because it's a whole different take. But to be able to talk to someone of your generation doing what you're doing is hugely inspiring. So good on you for doing what you're doing, Andrew, and thanks for inviting
Thanks, Daniel. I really appreciate you taking the
me.
time. I know it's early for you, but it was really amazing. Got some really great insights, and really looking forward to connecting more in the future and having you back on, sharing deeper
Well,
insights.
check out the Turning of the Ages Mystery School. There's huge amounts of resources there.
Totally, I 100% will, and everyone watching still check that out too because it's really cool stuff. Daniel, thanks for hopping on. Really appreciate you.
My
Everyone
pleasure.
else, I know you guys grabbed something really cool here, something to help you, get more connected to your essence, to your intuition, to your life path. You heard the word Jung again. We had the Jungian archetype. Someone talked about that. The smaller ones and the major ones, right? So everything's coming together, right? We're doing a full circle here. Take your notes, get it together, connect to it. Stay tuned. We've got a lot of other amazing experts on here helping you to identify and leverage your uniqueness. I'm Andrew Colombini, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks. Bye.